Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Ruhani, and today's session is on data integration at scale with Azure Synapse Pipeline. This session will run over for the next 60 minutes, including Q&A. This session is being recorded and will be uploaded on our Reactor YouTube channel. I will share the link to our YouTube channel in the chat section soon. Before we begin, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We are all here to learn together, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, and being kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. Also, please keep your mics muted during the session. I would now like to welcome Shivam, our speaker for today's session. Shivam is an author, cloud architect, speaker, and co-founder at TechScalable. Being passionate about ever-evolving technology, he works on Azure, GCP, machine learning, and blockchain. He is also a Microsoft certified trainer. For now, I will hand over to Shivam. Over to you, Shivam.
Okay, so I will quickly share my screen. Okay, so thanks Rohani, and good morning everyone. Hopefully all of you are doing well and you are safe at home. And today we are discussing the data integration at scale with Azure Synapse Pipelines. And if I just walk you through the agenda for the day, we will be discussing about the core components of the pipeline. So if you want to learn any technology, if you can break that technology into its elements, and if you can learn those elements, then it becomes easy to get that. That's what we will do. We will understand the various elements which are there in Azure Synapse. Once we've understood the Azure Synapse elements as such, we will go through uh, the we have a scenario where we will be doing slowly changing dimension. So we will understand what's the meaning of slowly changing dimension. In case you already know that, then that is what we will be implementing. So what is the purpose of Azure Synapse Pipeline? How does it work? From where does it get the data? Can I have it configured from on-premises to the cloud? Can I have it between cloud to cloud? Can I do ETL job creation over there? Can I have ELT job deployments over there? What is the meaning of Synapse pipeline? How do you integrate Apache Spark with it? What is mapping data flow? What are the various type of slowly changing dimensions as such? How are we going to use the Synapse pipeline to move data from OLTP into OLAP scenario? So that's something which this session will be focusing on. So we will start from the very scratch itself, the elements of the service, the core fundamentals of the service, and then we will build on top of it, and we'll see how it's done. Now, another part of the training which we are, the another part of the session which we are doing is we also provide the modules which can be completed later on by anyone who is interested in this particular service from Azure. So if you can see that on the events page itself, we have provided the MS Learn module. So if I just click on it and I just want to show it to you. So if I just open it up, it takes me to the MS Learn page where I have the same thing where which is more which is there in a very structured manner. Now this is something which you can pick up on your at your own pace, and you will be able to go through that. So if I just walk you through few of the things which I can see here is it starts from the uh, very basics of Azure Synapse and what is Data Factory uh, as well, Synapse Pipeline and Data Factory. Now the integration patterns, the processes over there, security, link services, data set, the integration runtimes. When you have to ingest petabyte of data, then what are the considerations over there? What should I enable? What type of parallelization should I have? How will I do my capacity management of the IRs as such, integration runtimes? So all of those things are there. The problem occurs when we are reading data from on-premise. Then at that point in time, the auto scaling functionalities of the cloud are not that applicable because we are hosting the integration runtimes on premise. So then what are the considerations in that scenario? So how do you literally do deploy the ETL or ELT pipeline? What is slowly changing dimension? This is also what I will be showing it to you. And how do you do the orchestration using the pipelines over there? Can I execute SSIS packages over there? And how do I take this into, how do I operationalize the entire pipeline solution? So this is what we will be covering. And this link is already in the chat window. And I encourage all of you to uh, have a look at that and complete that post the session itself. Okay, so let's get started. Now I will just take you to the whiteboard first, and I will break the service into its elements and we will understand it from there. And if you have been joining me since last few weeks, you know I'm recovering from COVID. So my voice is still, you can say, not very uh, reliable or consistent right now. So just hang in with me. Okay, now check this out. Now, if you are aware of one service called as Data Factory, right? Synapse, Azure Synapse Pipeline is exactly similar to that. So then what's the difference? Why is Microsoft having two type of services? So all of those type of questions we will answer, but let's understand the service first. So okay, now the whenever we deploy or whenever we want to work with Azure Synapse Pipeline, you need to have the workspace first. So if you, let's say this box is representing my Synapse workspace. So this is Synapse. Where is it? Can I show this to you? So I went to Azure portal, and in Azure portal, I have just clicked on create a resource, and I have deployed one workspace. And that workspace of Synapse is basically looking something like this over here, like that. Now, once you launch it, it looks something like this. Now, inside this workspace, if I take you to the left-hand side and I click on the develop option over here, and if I click on this plus icon on the top, I will be able to show you few of the options over there, data flow like this. And if you can see this integrate option over here, if I click on that, I will be able to create few pipelines over there. So I can say, okay, you have to first click on it. So let's click on it and then click on the plus option. You see this, the pipeline option over there. So this is one of the most fundamental element of any uh, ETL or ELT job, the pipeline itself. Okay, so what is a pipeline, right? Let's start from there. So if you see on my screen right now, this is something which is representing that Azure Synapse, and just say pipeline over there. Okay, so this is the pipeline concept over here. Now the pipeline basically is a logical collection of activities. It should logically do something for you. So when you think about what are activities over there, now inside this pipeline, we will be able to drop activities. I will be showing this to you. However, you can imagine these activities to be something like something which I am dropping in the screen right now, something like that. Imagine. So these activities which we have. So let's write it down. So this is the activity which we have dropped. Now this activity which we have dropped, this activity will be connecting to some data source, will be getting the data from somewhere. That somewhere location can be on premises, that somewhere location can be another cloud, that somewhere location can be any Azure service as such. So if I just take you, let's imagine that you are reading your data from a OLTP database. So this is representing OLTP right now. And if somebody asks you the example of OLTP in Azure, basically we are thinking of Azure SQL, which is one relational database, which is a typical OLTP database in Azure. So let's say this is the database from where you have to read some data. Or this location might be on premises. I'll help you with that as well in few minutes. Like if you have to get the data from on premises, then what happens? So like this. Now, so to be able to connect to that source location, wherever that source location is, I need to create the linked services over there. So linked services basically means the connection configuration. So if I represent the linked services, something like that. So and if I want to connect to any relational database, and if you really think it through, then the type of connection configuration will involve the username, password, the URL of the SQL server, maybe in cloud or on premise, or maybe in another cloud itself, and any other thing, or maybe if you don't think about Azure SQL, then maybe there is an storage account, or maybe there is another service in another cloud, then some sort of token concept might be there. So linked services are the connection configurations. And using these linked services, Azure Synapse Pipeline will be connecting to those solutions wherever they are. So how do you make the link service, right? Let me show that. So if I take you back to the Azure Synapse workspace over here and click on the manage section on the left hand side over here. And if I zoom in so everyone can see, right? Just give me 1 second. Okay, and I should have started this. Let me start that also. I'll show you what's the meaning of it, but I should have started that. Okay, now if you check this out, so on this manage section, you can see this linked service option. If I click on that, it will basically show me that, okay, from here I can add the source locations to which we will be connecting to. I can click on that and I can show you the various connectors or various sources which are supported by Data Factory. So we have Amazon RDS, Amazon RDS for SQL Server, Amazon S3, Blob Storage, cognitive services in Azure, Data Lake Gen 1, Gen 2, the Postgres databases, Delta Lake concept, Key Vault, search services, and so on and so forth. The list will keep on going on. So file system, FTP locations. Now this FTP location can be anywhere. That file system can be on premise. So HBase or so on and so forth, like that. So like this. So for example, I would like to connect to one of the solutions. So let's say I type SQL on top of it and I select the suitable SQL version which I would like to connect to, and I say continue on top of it. So it is asking me to complete the link the connection configuration. So if I from SQL's point of view, the connection configuration over here shows that the okay that particular database is in which subscription. Database is in have what's the server name of the database? What is the literally a database name over there? What type of authentication mechanism do you want to use? So in Azure, we have multiple authentication mechanisms. SQL authentication is obviously there, and we also have service principal. And now on top of it, we have the managed identities as well. The system assigned managed identities and the user assigned managed identities over there. So various type of mechanisms are there. Whichever is the most suitable one, you will go for that. Most probably you'll go for the managed identities or the service principals as such in your real environments. Now, once you have selected that option, you will give the further details and you will connect to that location. So if I just show the connect, if I just show you the connection which I have established over here, it is connecting to my Azure SQL. It is deployed in the same resource group in East US right now. There is a database called as SourceDB over there. We are doing SQL authentication. Username and password is there, and you can test your connection as well. So the connection configuration connecting to the source locations are called as linked services. So if I just put a few numbers, first thing is we have pipelines, we have linked services. Okay, now when you connect to some particular location, the next thing which happens is that you have to specify the metadata. For example, if I really uh, give you the same scenario where you can see that there are three tables inside the Azure SQL right now. Table 1, table 2, table 3. Now you want to read uh, some particular specific, we can say in table number 2, you want to read from 2017 onwards. You want to specify that, or you're saying you come to me and you say that Shivam, make sure that we are reading from the table number 3. And we inside the table number 3, I would like to read from this point onwards. Or there is a specific uh, metadata which you want to specify. That metadata can be the file name, table name. If you write something, then when that particular file is written, what is the name of that file? What type of file format are you reading, and what type of file format are you writing it into? So all those type of things are simply called as the metadata itself. So here in Azure Synapse Pipeline, that metadata will be called as a data set. So I can just represent it like this, that I have to create a data set. So data set really doesn't have data. Data set just will be having the metadata, and I need to define it because using the linked services and the metadata which is there in the data set, I will be able to read the data, or Synapse pipeline will be able to read the data when we execute that. So this is metadata only. Metadata. Okay. So now, if I just put few numbers, so let's say first thing which we have understood is that we have the pipelines, we have the linked services, and we have the metadata. So this is the third thing. Data sets are the third element of Synapse pipeline, or of this service. Now, uh, whenever you execute something, let's say even if for example, I'll show you something, and I'll just make you think first. So if I take you back to my existing pipeline over here, if I click on it and if I just show this to you, so you see that this particular pipeline already exists, and it seems that I have actually executed that before. I have clicked on the debug option, and that has already done the debug as such. Now, either I trigger it, or even if I debug it, if there is something which we are configuring, if it is running, it will be requiring some resources. At the backend, some resource utilization will happen. Now, if you, the thought which should come to mind is that who is managing that resource, where the pipeline is getting executed, and uh, how are we connecting to it? What happens if I'm connecting from on-premise to cloud? Then in those scenarios, who is managing the resource over there? So let me just double click on this. I'll just show you one pipeline, and this is the anyways a demo for the day. We will be configuring it. But if you think it through, so if this pipeline executes over here, if this particular data flow executes over here, then it has to consume some resources somewhere. So those resources which are consumed at the back end, when your data when you will run the Synapse pipelines, are basically called as integration runtime. So I can just create some servers over here, see, like this. So these servers are called as integration runtime. We are not managing, there are multiple type of integration runtime. So there is one time which is called as Azure IR, Azure Integration Runtime, which Microsoft is hosting. They will auto scale it and you have the control of selecting how many how many nodes should be there. Do you want to specify something manually, or do you want it to be on auto setting as such? Those type of configurations we have. But I'll just put that this is Azure IR, Integration Runtime. And how are we going to remember this? These are the resources which are being, or the resources of these servers are being used at the backend to be doing the execution of my pipeline. Whenever it runs, right now it has not executed, right? So IRs will be there. Now, what happens when we are reading the data from on-premises, and these on-premise locations are behind the firewall? So if I just make one box over here, and this is representing my on-premise location over here, like this, like that. Okay, and this is the data source over like this. Now, this data source can be any of the supporting data source, FTP locations, or any file system over there, right? Anything which is there on premises. Now, typically what happens on premises, the data will not be exposed to the internet directly. So you will have layers and layers of firewalls will be there, DMZ zones will be there, and the data tier is very highly protected asset. And it will not be, we call it, it will not be visible to internet, or it will not be visible to Azure Integration Runtime. So the servers which are hosted by Microsoft themselves, where my data factory components or where the Synapse components are executing are called as Azure Integration Runtime, Azure IR. Similarly, whenever I'm reading data from on-premises and my environment is behind the firewall, then actually I have to deploy those servers which will be doing the extract and the load process. So in these type of scenarios, we create our own servers over here, and we you can literally look up in the search browser. You can just search for download self-hosted integration runtime, which got renamed to Microsoft IR recently, but self-hosted integration runtime, and you install it locally in these servers over here. Now we can also create a cluster of them. So if in future, if you think about capacity planning and single point of failure, then you can also have a 4 node cluster created of the agents, and that will be working together. So the name of this particular agent which is there is self-hosted IR. Self-hosted IR. Like we are hosting the agent on-prem in our servers. And whenever the data factory or whenever the Synapse pipeline job will run, then something like this is going to be executing. So that's these servers will be doing the extract operation, and these servers are going to do the load operations in the cloud. Where are they loading? What are they doing with it? All those things I will just explain on the way. But we also have another type of integration runtime which is hosted by us on premises. As such, in the scenarios where the source of the data is not publicly exposed, or it's not publicly visible to Azure IR. So then we have to make those servers on-prem. Okay, so this is another element of the Synapse pipelines. How do you configure it? So if you're thinking about configuring it, same. You have to go to this manage option, and then you basically have to click on the integration runtime, and you have to click on this new integration runtime. You have to say self-hosted over there and go for next. Fill up this form over there, say create. Now install the agent on premises. It will show us a metadata key over here. Copy the key, give it inside the server. If the network is there, if there is a network connection, or you can say if the agent is visible to the pipeline, and once you give this key and you save it, basically it will say active over here. Right now it is saying not active, but here it will start saying active. Then we can select that during our configuration, specifying that we are reading the data from on-premise locations like that. So this is how you configure that. Now the okay, so I just want to uh, tell you one more thing over here. Now, this is one of the typical, if you have joined me for any of the previous session, you must have seen that I always specify, or I always use the same example. So just bear with me one more time. But so let's say we have these two type of systems right now in the company, right? We have the OLTP systems and the OLAP systems. And this is OLAP systems. So the OLTP systems are the ones which are running my business. OLAP systems are the one which are doing analysis of my business. Both are absolutely required, very important for us to be having from the point of view of running any business. Okay, now the job which moves the data from here to there is the ETL job, like that. And once you get your data from this transactional database, which will be more like a type of maybe a relational database, into the warehouse, which will be storing, you can say, years and years of data, that that particular job, that ETL job is what Synapse pipeline can create. Now, there is one thing which we will be focusing on today, is that there are scenarios where the data. Okay, so if you can see this, so this is a warehouse over here, warehouse, and that can be any transactional database, right? Now there are scenarios which are called as slowly changing dimension, or there is a particular concept which is called as slowly changing dimension. Now what happens is I'll show you one picture first, and okay, so I am just going to copy one image, and I'll see if I can paste that in the whiteboard somewhere, if it lets me move it. Okay. So, okay, so the scenario is that the data in the source location, which is the OLTP database over here, uh, which and then you ran the ETL job and it was moved to your warehouse over there, right? For and you are storing last 3 years of data or some X amount of data inside the warehouse for your descriptive analytics. But what happened that some of the attributes got changed over there. So, for example, what can change? Like there is a particular thing called as slowly changing. Like we have uh, values such as, let's say, name of customer or name of the employee, which doesn't change every day. If maybe the all of you who are listening to this session right now, maybe you may have got some name change maybe in high school or something, like once, like that. Or how often do you think your address change? So you don't change your address every week like that. Once in a blue moon you will change your address, right? So these type of values which are uh, which get updated by the in the source databases, but the frequency of the update is not very it's not very often. It's very slow as such. It happens uh, once in a blue moon type of thing. These type of changes are called as slowly changing dimensions as such. Now, this slowly changing dimension has multiple types like SCD 0, slowly changing dimension type 0, slowly changing dimension type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, and so on and so forth. Now, so one of the most typical scenario or something which will be there in nearly every company as such will be what we are just right now discussing. So the type of slowly changing dimensions, if I just describe it for you. So if we are doing a slowly changing dimension of type 0, that means that the change was so insignificant that we didn't make the change in the warehouse. You ignored it. That's called a slowly changing dimension of type 0. Slowly changing dimension of type 1 is what I will be showing you. And the meaning of that is that the change was overwritten inside the warehouse. So whatever new value of the surname of the customer was there in the OLTP database, or whatever new address was there, that particular value was overwritten inside the warehouse, and the history of change was not maintained. History of change basically means that uh, that if the business comes back and ask you that what at which particular date or when did you made this change, or what was the original value and now what is the modified value, that particular information is not stored as such. There can be multiple reasons for not storing it. One thing which comes to mind is that the change was actually a mistake. Like it was, let's say, when the person was supposed to type something, initially they have typed something wrong, and then later on they updated that or corrected that. So because of that correction, the it was decided that this change, this the just to store the change or just to store the history of the change is not significant. Now, but if you would like to store the history of change, that particular thing is called as slowly changing dimension of type 2 as such, SCD type 2, where we store the change inside the warehouse by adding another row over there and by adding another current flag. Actually, I have the image for that open in my secondary screen. I would like to show that uh, to you. I'll just take one more minute of your time in this, and then I'll just take you back to Synapse. So if I just show you this slowly changing dimension of type 2, this is how it will be looking like. So, oh, not really. So I think it didn't got copied. So let me go and copy that one more time. So this is the same image. I think, is it? Okay, it doesn't want to get copied. So let me then just see if I can, okay, I'll just do one thing. I will just, and whatever I'm showing from the learn module, which I was requesting you to go through. Uh, well after this session, because it is having the entire content in a very structured manner. So now if you check this out, this is that slowly changing dimension of type 2, where the where the region of the employee was changed. Maybe it can be a sales territory. So this person was working on some particular sales territory, and now they have been relocated, or they have been assigned another sales territory. So the entire history is being maintained inside the warehouse. That okay, the original value was south central, now the new value is southeast. So the change was maintained by adding another row, and if you can see this, there is a current flag over there. Which value is the current value? Because there are two entries for the same uh, salesperson right now. So is this the current value? False. This is the current value. True. So by adding another row and by adding the flags, we are able to maintain the history of change. This is called a slowly changing dimension of type 2. And then there are many more as well, which may or may not be very used very often. But slowly changing dimension of type 1 and type 2 are mostly used as such. Okay, now if I just take you back, so what we are going to do is we would like to see that happen ourselves. And let me see how can I remove that. Okay. So the source database is Azure SQL, where where the change has been done, right? The warehouse which we have is Azure Synapse Dedicated SQL Pool, which is a MPP uh, warehouse, basically having MPP architecture. So if I just create that over here, it will be looking something like this. So we won't be going in the dedicated SQL pool, but it's been covered a couple of times in the previous sessions, and you can definitely go and have a look at it. But the warehouse is having an architecture something like this. We have the control node, and then the compute nodes are there, and these compute nodes are scalable, and then we have the storage nodes over there. So this is the massive warehouse which is called as Azure Synapse Dedicated SQL Pool. So let me just write that name. Synapse Dedicated SQL Pool. Okay, so the problem which we have is that this particular warehouse might be having a petabyte of data. Now we would like to uh, modify the value. We would like to upsert the value of the change which has happened. So how are we going to automate that? We would not like to do it in any manual manner. So to be able to automate this particular SCD type 1 using the Synapse pipeline, we will actually be connecting it in this manner. So you will see that we have Azure SQL and we have connected that. And secondly, apart from that, we will create another source like this. And this source now is going to be the warehouse. So the same warehouse which I created on the right hand side, this is the same one, right? I'm just making it like a small box over here, like this. I'm just representing it one more time over here, like this. So this is the same warehouse. Okay, so now the new data will be there, or the updated data will be here. So I'll just say new or updated for now. So this is the updated value will be there. And this is where we have the old value, which we would like to update, right? Now, the rest of the components will remain same, that there is going to be one data set which needs to be defined as well. So we have to connect to both the sources. We will be connecting to the OLTP source, and we would also be connecting to the OLAP source over here. Now, we will be specifying which particular table we would like to read from. Now, once we have specified that, like which particular value we would like to read from, we will be taking the hash. We will create the hash of the rows as such. So over here, we will do one hashing step as such. Now, the purpose of doing this hashing step, or the purpose of hashing, is that hashing has this amazing capability of making of comparison. You can literally compare two different files to understand whether they have been modified or not by just matching the hash values of it. You don't even have to modify to compare the individual uh, data which is inside those two files. Doesn't matter. If you run any hashing algorithm on top of it, SHA-256, that's what we will be using. Then, and if the hashes meet or match, sorry, then it means that the files are identical and nobody has made any difference over there, or nobody has modified any value over there. And hashing is something which is you can say the hardware which we have is able to do hashing pretty fast, and it really, once you take the hashes, once you create the hashes, then the size of the data doesn't matter because these hashes are very lightweight. So we would like to create the hashes as such. Now, of the data which is coming from OLTP. Now, why are we going to hash only the OLTP data? Because actually uh, in the scenario, I have already configured the other part of it. So the hashes for the rows of the data which is in the warehouse is already created and already stored over there. Like it's literally one attribute is there where we are storing it. So we in this scenario, I don't need to do that. So I am just creating the hash of the data which is coming from the in the old OLTP stream over there. Now, once I have done this, right? Now the logic which we will be executing is that on top of then we have to match these hashes. So the hashes which are there in the warehouse, those hashes, if they match with the hashes inside the which we have just created in the previous step, if they exist, like, see, if the value match, then that is not what we are worried about. We are worried about when the value doesn't match, when the data was modified in the or was updated in the OLTP database, but the warehouse doesn't have the updated value. That those particular observations we would like to find. So we will be dropping the exist step over there, and in this exist step, we will be going for the we'll be doing the configuration that the hash doesn't match. So for those rows, when the hash doesn't match, we would like to filter those rows out. And those are the rows in which we will be, and that's what we have to modify. Now, after this, so this is where the filtering will happen, or where we will be able to identify that out of those millions and billions of rows, how many have been modified. And it may not be a very big number. So this will be, this will help us in just filtering the ones which we require. Now, after that, we will be doing one lookup. So the meaning of lookup is basically uh, we would like to uh, find the particular observation from the filtered rows by using the customer ID. So using the customer ID, we will do the lookup in the filtered data. And once we have done that, we will simply, you can say, we will simply are going to, okay, now one more thing which we are going to do over here is we are creating few new columns and as such, and we have this particular step which is called as derived columns. Now, derived columns will be, which means that you can create another column in the pipeline itself. Now, what's the purpose of this derived column? Why do I do it? Or what's the reason behind it? So right now what we are doing in this scenario is that if in the warehouse, let's say this is a table inside the warehouse and there is a date column over there. This is date, right? Now, if there is no value inside this date, so, or I would like you to understand that if there, so in those scenarios where the existing data, we are not thinking about the existing data which got modified. We are thinking about that a new customer or new employee came in the OLTP database. There is another new observation. So that observation was literally was not exist didn't existed in the warehouse. So we would like to insert it. If there is something which doesn't exist, you insert it. So we would like to insert the value. So if in this date, we will insert the current date as such, current timestamp. And secondly, if it already exists, imagine this is the particular observation which we are going to uh, update. So if we are doing one update operation on top of it, then we do not want to go for the current date. We will insert the modified date. So when was the modification done? So like this. So this is what we are uh, putting over there. And by this, we can do audit later on. You can figure out that on which particular date the row was modified and what was the value before it and so on and so forth like this. So that particular derived column uh, step will be, we will execute that and we will be working with the date as such in that step. Now I am more or less, I am done. I'll just show you the deployment of it. Now, after this, I just told you that there are two possibilities, right? We may have to insert and we may have to update as well. So the configuration in which we specify that I would like to do both update and insert is called as upsert. So we will be saying that, okay, we would like to do upsert equal to true. And where are we going to do the upsert? In the sync location. What is the sync location? The same warehouse. Where is the linked service? We will have it. We will connect with it. So this is the linked service over there. And apart from this linked service, the same data set, like the file name and all that needs to be defined over there. So this is what I am just going to show you. And by this, we will be seeing the one of the popular use case where you can go for any type of ETL solution to be able to compare your two different uh, data sources or source and the sink. And the one which we are doing is SCD type 1. If you want to try the other ones, it's totally available. You can look up in the documentation and deploy the other ones. Okay, so if I just take you back now, something which I would like you to understand. Now, as we were just thinking about that, when this execute, it executes on some particular cluster at the backend, right? Now, if I just take you back to my Synapse pipeline, I just want to click on the service over there. So I can show this to you. And let's say new, and this is data flow, right? So we have this particular element inside the pipelines called as data flows. Now, I have to start that debug cluster. So that debug cluster will help me in understanding if I do something wrong over there as such, right? Now, this what we have discussed in that whiteboard is what we have to do over here now. So it's going to be very straightforward. But the when we will be executing this, right? Let's say we are able to create this and we executed that. Then this particular pipeline, when it will execute like this, imagine like this, it got executed. This actually is at the backend is running on a Spark cluster like that. So the integration runtime over here or data flow actually uses Spark integration runtimes at the backend to execute. So apart from the initial cluster creation, this will provide you the same type of expected performance from Spark as such. Now let's do this. So I will just take you back to the previous tab. Now I have to connect to my just like we discussed in the diagram, we have to do to the connectivity to the OLTP database, and we have to connect to the warehouse as well, both of them, and then we have to complete the logic over there. Now what I'm doing is you can specify. I'll just push it back like this, so it becomes slightly my screen looks slightly bigger. Okay, so let's put some information there. So this is update customer dimension values over here. Now source. So this particular tool is more like no code or very low in code as such. So you will notice that we are able to just drag and drop and do things over there. So I would like to connect to uh, I would like to call this as my source DB like this, like that. So in my diagram, I think I typed OLTP, but I will call this as source DB. Now I want to connect to the data set. So uh, I can click on new over here and I can search for SQL. So the purpose of data set was it will define the metadata over there. So I would like to connect to Azure SQL. And in this Azure SQL, basically I would like to specify that this particular data set is called as, sorry, missed it. So I'm just following a tutorial right now. So I'm just putting those values from there. So this is how I think I have the same name. So I'll just say two over here. And which linked service? The linked service which we have created earlier, we would like to use that linked service. Now that particular linked service which we have you can say selected. Now what's the table name? So the table which we are pointing to in the OLTP database is called as sales customer, that one. And that's the one which we would like to, that's the one where the changes are happening right now. Okay, there are other options as well here. You can go in, you can explore the other options in the screen. Now, the second thing is I would like to create the hashes on top of it. So that hash which we are creating on for each and every observation is basically, and then we will be storing that in another column. So it's basically going to be another column like this. So I can create these columns on the way and I can drop them as well and so on and so forth. So we have various type of, you can say schema modifier options which are available if you are able to see as such. Now, I will not say that you will find you can do each and everything in the world by these options over there. If you don't find those particular uh, operations which you're looking for, you can also use PySpark over here. You can also use map reduce operations, not in this, but we can use with Azure Synapse, not in this screen in data flow, but in Synapse pipeline, we can do it. And then we can work with, and with PySpark, you can do anything which comes to your mind. So all those options will get opened up. Okay, so I'll just quickly finish this. And this is what I'm calling as that. This is where I would like to create the customer hashes. Okay, and what is the column name which I would like to create? I can specify that over here. So I can use any existing column. I can also create new columns over there. And the expression which I'm using, that particular expression right now is using SHA-256. And if there is any null value in that observation, in that row, it is going to replace that null value with empty string first, and then it is going to do the hashing on top of it. So that is the expression. So if null values are there, they will be handled over here. Now, okay, so with what do we have to compare this? This needs to be compared, or the we have to do the modification in the Synapse. So basically, we'll add another source, and I will drop it from here. I'll say new, and I will look for Synapse. I will select Synapse. Next, I will give the name of the data set. So data sets are simply metadata. They are representing the metadata right now. So I'll say two over there. Link service already exists, and you can create new ones if you want as well. Otherwise, you can reuse as well. Now, the which table do I want to look at? So I can specify the name of my database inside that uh, Synapse. So I am specifying my dedicated SQL pool. That's the name of it, SQL pool 01. And if I specify this, and then it should be loading the table over here. Okay. And I would like to update the dimension table in my warehouse, which is called as dim customer, like this. Okay. Now, after this, we will simply select this, and maybe we have to say, okay, one more time. Okay. Now, one thing which I would just like to double check is if I click on open, does it show? Okay, no. So let me give that SQL pool 01 one more time over here, that this is the particular database from where I'm reading. Okay, it's a parameter which is whose value we are specifying. Okay, so if you go back to the diagram, so the diagram was pretty straightforward, right? So we got this hashing done, exist and lookup. So if I take you back, let's do the exist over here. So exist will have two type of conditions. Like, do you want to filter the rows which match? We don't want to do that because that will not solve the upsert operation which we are thinking of. We would like to find those values which are not matching. So in this exist, we will click on the doesn't exist. You can say there is a left stream and there is a right stream. So whatever extra which is there in the left stream. That is something we would like to filter out and which was not there in the right stream. Now I will simply do a little bit of beautification over here by can say specifying a couple of things carefully. So this is going to be that. So it shows like this, and let's say it exists. Okay, now once we have done this, oh sorry, the value by which the column by which we will map it. So in the left stream, the column we just created in the previous step. So it has not executed yet. So but it's just showing me the column names and all that. But it will only the computation will be utilized as soon as I execute it or I run it or I trigger it. You can manually trigger it. You can schedule it. You can also have event-based triggers as such. So all those type of options are available. Okay, the next thing is we will be doing the lookup over there. So we have this particular operation lookup, and we would like to find the rows by customer ID as such. Okay, so in this, uh, okay, so in the customer ID, I would just like to put few things over here. So the stream name is going to be lookup customer ID, and the input, the primary stream is coming from here, and the lookup stream is Synapse dim customer. So you have to look up against that particular value. So in this stream, you look up for the values which for the rows which didn't match. And by which column should we do that? You have to specify. You can specify values here. So we would like to use the customer IDs, which will be the primary keys for us in this scenario to identify them. Now, this is what I was mentioning about that we will be adding the date. We will be adding the insert date and modified date value. So insert date value will be there. In case inserted date doesn't have anything, then we will be putting the current timestamp over there. But if the inserted, but if and the second thing which is there is modified date, like when was the modification done. So we will be doing the modification when this, so the modification will be done when this pipeline will execute. So we will say current timestamp. So whenever it will run, and that is the point which we would like to insert inside the dimension table over there. So modified date and here current timestamp. Okay, so let me just put that value something like this over here. Done. Okay, now the operation which I'm going to perform. So insert plus update is the operation which we are trying to perform over there. So we will say that this is the operation which is called as upsert operation, like that. And we are going to do this on the stream which is coming right now. And we will just specify the condition that do upsert true for everyone. So there is no condition which I'm specifying. I'm saying you do upsert for in all the scenarios. You may also give some condition here that, okay, do upsert if the value is bigger than that, or do this if the value is less than that, and so on and so forth. Then the sync location. So sync is the same dedicated SQL pool, which we have already created before. So I can simply expand that, and maybe just from here, look for the dedicated SQL pool. That's the table in which I would like to upsert. And in the setting, I will say upsert, allow upsert. And then if you would like to find the values by some column, you use the customer ID for that. Now, recommendation is you leave the staging enabled. So because the data flow is basically a Spark based solution. So when it writes data in the output location, it just dumps the data at a very high throughput. So the solutions which are trying to read at or where that synapse where this data flow is writing, that those solutions may not be having this. They may not be able to meet the capacity or the throughput of Spark cluster. So enable the staging. That's the recommendation. Now we have done this. So this is what I have here as well. that exact same configuration. And now, how do I execute it, right? Let me see if I can just zoom in over here. So this is what I have. Maybe slightly more, you can say beautification has been done over on top of it. Now, basically after that, you go back to the integration step over here. So one thing which is in Synapse Pipeline, one thing which you will notice is that everything is modular. You can create these different small modules and you can integrate them later on, which doesn't happen in the data factory. In data factory, I will not be able to pick up something from the other one and drop it in another pipeline. I have to uh, put my efforts into, you can say, making it again. But here what I can do, if I have created these different modular, independent, well tested, well tried steps as such, I can simply go and create one pipeline, and as part of the pipeline I can drop that. So you will notice that you can just drop it like this, and you can select that particular value from the setting option. So this is the one which will uh, get selected over there. So this will update the 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 dimension table, the dim customer, like this. Okay, so how do you execute it? Now, from when you develop it, it's better you debug and you find that till which point it has executed. We have breakpoint options over here. Right now, I only have one single step in this pipeline, but you can find this breakpoint. So debug it. You can also add triggers. You can trigger now. You can say new triggers as well. And from here, you can schedule it and you can go for the event-based triggers as well. Now, apart from this, if I just show you from where will you find the errors? Now, if you click on this monitoring section, you will be finding the pipeline runs which were triggered and which were debugged as such. So the one which I have debugged, it's somewhere, maybe I think one of them. So like this. So it is showing that the uh, the pipeline was executed and so on and so forth like this. So you will find your errors from the monitoring section over there. So this is basically what we had in mind for the session, where we have sort of created one ETL job right now, which is actually comparing the tables in the observation in the table inside Azure SQL with the dimension table inside the warehouse. And we are doing the hashing in data flow, and we are getting and then we are filtering the rows out, and then we are finding few of the those rows with the customer ID. We are modifying the values over there, and the updated values will be written back. So how does it execute after this? Once you run it, you can check it out. So I actually have already configured that part for you. So if I just go and show that to you, so this is one of the value which I think might be open somewhere over here. Okay, SQL scripts. Okay, so okay, not this one, but basically what I did, we went and we manually inserted the value in the OLTP database, and then we ran the pipeline, and then that particular value was modified in the warehouse. So how can you do it? Now, post this session, if you just go to the learn module over there, so whatever we have discussed is very well documented over here, and this is something which we can go into, and it goes even slightly beyond what we were able to cover as such. You can read about the other slowly changing dimensions which are there. And just FYI, if you are planning of DP 203 certification, uh, you will get a lot of questions on just this particular thing over here. And then if you are migrating any existing SSIS package to the cloud, then how do you do lift and shift for them? And then what are the extra configurations required? So that's part is over here. And how can you basically do the CI/CD integration for Data Factory or Azure Synapse Pipeline? So the learn modules are in this tab. So I'll take your questions now. If you have questions, I'll just go through the chat window. If you have already pasted a few questions and I couldn't take it. And if you have questions, you just let me know about your questions, and Okay, so I don't see any question in the chat right now. So if you, then I'll do one thing. I will also give you the LinkedIn Connect option. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. Okay, so there is a few questions in the chat now. Do we need Azure subscription, or the module link will be able to create the entire solution? And the answer for that will be mm, that you will be needing one Azure subscription, and the one which we can go for is the free trial of Azure, like this. So which is something which comes to mind. This is what can be used, and it provides all those services. It's free of cost. And yeah, during the sign up process, we do have to provide our credit card information. But even if you forget to delete the resources and it runs day in, day out, it doesn't charge. They have not, it will just get expired after the, it's like a top up account, and then it will just expire after that, after $200 as such. So that's something which you will need. Does Azure, does Synapse have all machine learning capabilities like Data Factory? Answer is yeah. Synapse is having all data factory capabilities like ADF. So ADF also doesn't do machine learning itself. Data factory also connects with other locations. Same thing happens over here. So if I would just like to go back and click on the pipeline one more time and open the tab for you, you will find that this is exactly same as what you have seen in the data factory as well. So you will be able to connect with Databricks. You will be able to use the you can say ML Azure Machine Learning Service along with Synapse Pipeline. So yes, it will be having exact uh, same settings. Can this be done by using manual coding? This can be done by manual coding. Then what you have to do is basically you can write one notebook in Databricks, and then you integrate that notebook over here, and in your execution pipeline that notebook will execute, and that notebook is where you have to write the logic. That's one thing which can come to, which I can see right away from the screen itself. You can also think about other jobs. We have Hive, MapReduce, Pig, Spark jobs over here, but for them you need HD Insight, which is another which is like a which is the big data solution from Microsoft, HD Insight, which contains multiple things inside it. So yeah, manual coding can also be done, but I cannot do it in the console itself. I have to use some service where I can do the manual coding, maybe in Azure Function. Okay, what cases to use? Okay, so I think the question is that when to use Data Factory, when to use Synapse, maybe. The I'll tell you the answer which Microsoft recommends to of the way Microsoft guide the customers. Basically, if your customer is looking for multiple solutions, they're thinking of ETL, ELT. They also require warehousing capabilities. They require Spark functionalities and the EDA functionalities. So if they are looking for that combination of services, then Synapse is that one-stop shop which contains all those services. But if the customer was not looking for the warehouse or the combination of services, they were looking for that ETL ELT job capability, and uh, that's the only thing which they were thinking of. Then you should have gone for Data Factory, because here we have so many more to offer, and and then from that customer's point of view, they have to think about how to block or how to revoke rights to from people to who can spin up the Spark cluster and all that. So then ADF should have been used in that. So technically ADF is exactly same as the pipeline option of Synapse, and it's more like, am I looking for a combination of services or single service? Okay, so okay, then I think if you have any other question for me, let me know. Thank you. Thank you for that. Can Synapse will not allow on-premise connectivity? No. Synapse allows on-premise connectivity. We have the option of connecting on-prem. There is nothing like that. Okay, so there is a big question in the chat. Thanks for this session. Bidas, you can find me on LinkedIn. You must have found me on LinkedIn as well. Just we can take that question over there, right? Okay, so then can we have a session only on Data Factory? Yeah, definitely we can have sessions only for Data Factory as well. We can plan that. And please join the Reactor group. There are so many sessions which are going on that whatever you're looking for, you will find it. Okay, then I think Rashmita, if we or Ruhani, if we have to share any links, we can do that, and then we can close the session after that. Can we have a session where we can connect Salesforce or ERP? That is something which we need to maybe check internally, that if we can have any representation from Salesforce itself, and then or maybe if the licenses can be provided, then why not? Right? Maybe get data from there, create user accounts, and so on and so forth. A lot of things can be planned. Yeah.
Thanks, Shivam. I think we don't have any more questions, so we can wrap up for today. Thank you so much, Shivam, and thank you all for joining us today. And please do share your feedback about today's session. And please feel free to use the Learn module link. Thank you all once again and enjoy the rest of your day.